Hello, welcome back. Sean here, Mountains Garage, late Friday afternoon edition. Today I'm contemplating, at the end of my day, what intake manifold to put on my ATK 6 liter, advertised 460 horsepower, 470 torque, all done at 6,000 RPMs. That'll become a critical point in the story, I guess. But first, let's discuss the world we live in right now. Not the craziness that you see on TV, but just the availability of information. That's good and bad. The good part is you can find pretty much, if you take everything with a grain of salt, don't believe the first source you may hear, but do your own research and come up to your own conclusions. However, there's a lot of information for you to pick through. The downside of that, and gone seemingly, is the mystique, the myth, the legend of stuff. What am I talking about? For instance, if you're a car person, sometimes I say car guy, I've mentioned that before, it's everybody. It's not a gender thing. So, you have visions in your head of, for instance, an LS6 Chevelle. It's up on a plateau. Any car with a Hemi in it. You want to believe it is at the pinnacle of its performance game. Untouchable. In today's world, while you're lost in your illusions of grandeur, some guy in a Fox body Mustang with a 4.8 and a Chinese turbo just beat you in the quarter mile by 4 seconds or more. So it's a whole mix of all that put together. But how does that relate today? Well, as I was cleaning up my bench, had a Richard Holden video on. He's a dyno guy. If you never watched him, he dynos engines at West Tech Performance. You'll recognize him if you don't know who I'm talking about. And he's very believable. I believe what he tells me most of the time, if not all the time. And I was watching or listening to a video of him comparing intake manifolds for an engine like this and beyond. So, using that information, that can't be your only choice, because performance parts are situational. I mean, is there a better camshaft for this motor? Yes, but it depends what you're going to do with it. It may outperform it in one area, but not all the areas. So, same goes for all the choices you make. Are these headers the absolute best you can do? No, sometimes it depends if it'll fit your application or other factors. Pick a part. The same story applies to all of them. So your project is a combination of all the ingredients that you chose for your recipe. And the end result is what it is. It could always be better, it could always be worse. So you got to take that into consideration. Sometimes you're just going to use what you have on hand. Sometimes you're disappointed, sometimes you're pleasantly surprised. You might buy the most expensive intake available for this motor and be disappointed, especially at the magic 6,000 RPM number, because that is where your stock intake manifolds on an LS will outperform almost everything. Even the ugliest manifold ever made is the truck intake, and the Trailblazer SS is no beauty queen itself, but they will outperform pretty much everything below 6,000 RPMs. Above that, the other manifolds take off. So let's show you my selections, and then I guess I'll make a decision. Intake choice number 1. It's the first one I dragged out that I had in mind for this engine. It's a Holley Mid Ram. It consists of a dual quad lower manifold, an adapter piece, and the same lid they use on all the Rams, the high ram, mid ram, low ram, etc. It will pretty much hang with the stock intakes. It does give up a little bit of power, again, on the dyno, if you're going just by dyno results. So that's a factor. It is definitely a good looking intake. I have no problem with the looks. That's kind of, you know, the look you have in late model engines. I have the fuel rails. I don't have the bolts to attach it to the head, but I can figure that out, no problem. It's very usable. I went to take it apart the other day. Now I bought this used. It's never been run, but the black crinkle coat you see is not from Holley. Somebody else did that. And it's okay. But I went to take the lid off because the adapter bolts down to where the two 4-barrels would sit on the lower intake. I want to make sure those bolts are secure. And the lid is glued on. A lot. It looks like they use black RTV. I don't know who it is that did this, but they need a lesson in chemicals. RTV will not hold up to gasoline. So I don't know what it's glued on with, and I actually need to bolt it down to something and probably put a pry bar in here and try to get the thing off. That's where we're at. We gave up on it at the moment. I will not run it without checking the bolts that hold the adapter down. I call that a downside to this manifold. I don't need extra bolts in my intake track that can loosen up. And this has those. So that's a detractor. However, big picture, I have it. I need to use it on something. This wouldn't be such a bad choice. It wouldn't give up a lot of power to the stock ones, you know, going by just pure dyno results. And it fits all the other criteria, with the exception of it's very heavy. So that's number one. Intake number two. Intake 0, I guess I should have mentioned, is I have a truckload of truck intakes, but I never even considered even using one. They're all old and dirty and really ugly, so we're not even going to consider that. So option number 2, this is a Holley Sniper fabricated manifold. You can buy the white box edition of this for considerably cheaper. Either way, it is an absolute piece of garbage. They should be ashamed to put their name on it. Was that harsh enough? It's not bad looking from the outside. I guess from a power perspective, it's a loser to everything. It's about as low as you can get, the worst performing manifold you can put on this motor. Inside, the intake runners actually stick up inside, and if you were to look at the quality of the weld inside, I'm afraid it's going to break off and end up down in the engine. It comes without fuel rails. They charge an astronomical price for it, and they don't even give you the fuel rails and brackets. They do give you the attaching bolts and O-rings for the heads, but you're on your own for the rest. When I bought it, today's the first day I've ever had it out of the box. Looking at it from the outside, you know, I opened the box, yep, it's a Sniper intake, put it on the shelf. I didn't really get a good look at it until just a few minutes ago. But when I bought the intake, I bought an aftermarket white box set of fuel rails that actually fit, so I could adapt my short injectors. And on this engine, it wouldn't be so bad. However, I know below 6,000 it gives up a lot of power, like noticeable power. Again, I haven't experienced it myself. I'm just going by the popular opinion on this manifold, and you know, where the smoke is fire, it's probably true. So, I don't know the fate of this intake manifold. It might go right back in the box. But where am I going to use it if I don't use it on this? I don't know, something else. But before I stop talking about this manifold, this is the white box version of a rectangular port. Very similar intake. This one, the runners don't stick up inside. It's much better quality. And I say I have a set of rectangular port heads, and I picked up this intake in a trade, so I would run this one probably. What I don't like about it, this is what they give you for vacuum ports. Same with this one. There's no direct connection if you want to run the stock style map sensor. You can make it work, you know, vacuum's vacuum, but you have to do a little more work and relocate it, etc. And finally, the Trailblazer SS, or the bread box manifold they call it. How this thing outperforms all the other intakes is hard to believe. You look inside, it's tiny, the air has to, I guess it makes a vortex inside. It's hot glue gun together. There are no bad reports about this manifold other than its looks, I suppose, but it comes with the mounting hardware. I have gaskets and everything else, so I can make that work. Putting the throttle body on is not a problem. Just need to get the green O-ring. I would have to buy fuel rails for this because the injectors sit at an angle, and there's only 2 attaching bolts for the rail, where the aftermarket manifolds, the injectors are straight, and there's 3 bolt holes in different spots. So it would be a good use for this. These are wicked cheap. You can buy them brand new. People try to sell them used for a couple $100. You can buy a brand new one for $110 or $20 online. So right in the GM casket. So it's as ugly as the rest of the motor. Seems fitting. It's so ugly you got to build a shield over the top of it, but they give you attaching holes so you can hide it. Anyway, that's my review today. I got to go meet the bus. My bus alarm just went off. I hope you have a great weekend. Enjoy it, and I'll catch you in a couple days.